Welcome to the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, where one of two women's teams are still alive in the NCAA tournament, March Madness, the women's side. The Kentucky women are the other one, and they're both alive with 1 point wins in the second round. But in Maryland, John, I'm a little out of touch with stuff outside of Kentucky. So tell me where the Maryland Terps are in the women's tournament in the land of pleasant living. Are they still in or out?
Well, first and foremost, Gary, let me say hey to everybody. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Daily Deuce. Just a quick one. The weather is 60 degrees, a little bit cold here. About a weekend, it's going to be 50, going to be cold again. I need sweatshirts and hoodies again.
What? Man, that's weird. That's
It,
just
it,
weird.
it was 80 on Sunday. Look, we're not going to go long into this. I'll just say this.
I believe
It
you.
was it was 80 on Sunday, and Kim didn't
Hmm.
want to turn the air conditioner on because it was March.
Uh, yeah. I mean, John, I went through the same thing Sunday. It was 80. These past 2 days, I mean, you see, I've got on a jacket and stuff because it's been in the 50s the last 2 days. And ironically, women's game I covered Monday at Louisville, that they had the air conditioner on in there, and it was
Yeah.
March because they had to because it was 80 on Sunday. That's just where we are weather-wise, and I think it's just going to kind of bounce up and down here between the 50s, the 70s, and the 60s. So, you know, you come dressed for a little bit of everything, John. Speaking of a little bit of everything, March Madness has had a little bit of everything. That we haven't had any grandiose upsets, with the exception of number one, Florida going out in the second round, which nobody saw coming. And even less of what anybody saw coming was that they had the ball last and didn't even get a shot off with the clock and the ball in their hands, and they lose. John, what do you make of that? Well, first I make of that is like, to me as a coach, that's unacceptable. It busted a whole lot of brackets, and I think it's either opened the door for Duke or Arizona to bust through. That's the way I kind of see it. What do you see from all that? Your takeaway from weekend one?
All right. Before I answer that one, Gary, let me just go back to your original question because I sidetracked you, which was my fault, and I apologize. Maryland is out of the tournament. They lost to UNC, so they had a good season, but they're done. So we'll come back to the women talk a little bit more later about that. But on this men's side, tough loss for Florida. Iowa was a rough matchup for them. I think Iowa played a this is a different kind of Iowa team than when what's my man's name, Fran McCaffrey.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when he was there, it was a little bit faster paced game, more looking for threes. This Iowa team will still shoot threes, but they are more gritty on that defensive end. And I think they played Florida very tough. The kid that hit the shot, I can't for Locker's, or I can't even think of the kid's name that hit the winning shot
Hmm.
for Iowa. Very good player. He's able to stretch the floor as a big. I just don't understand how he was so wide open at the end. Basically, he had enough time to step behind the three and still have an open shot. The
Hmm.
last possession, the kid drove it. When you drive down there with all those aircraft carriers, there's not a lot of room to make a pass,
Hmm.
especially a straight chest pass. It's very hard to make a bounce pass, which will have either pass has to be precise. You get down there and there's not a lot of room to make another pass inside. Usually, when you get down there, you're looking to kick it out on the wing, and that was not an option. And they didn't get a shot off because Iowa's defense got their hands on the ball. And the kid
Hmm.
from Florida, Hout, I think I said his name right, Hout, just he couldn't get a good grip on the ball, and the time ran out. So
Hmm.
it's one of those things, man. You're speaking of it's a clear path for Duke. Let me tell you what I think, Mr. Graves.
Hmm.
I think Duke has a very interesting game against St. John's on Friday night. Matter of fact, that game is here in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Also, Michigan State is playing UConn in that same bracket. So you have coaches that are playing in D.C. John Shire, Rick Pitino, Tom Izzo, and Danny Hurley. There's quite a quartet of coaches there. And I think there's going to be very competitive games. I think both games are going to be very, very good. I think Michigan State can beat UConn and Mr. Graves, that guy that walks on the court with the $400 shoes and the $5,000 suits by the name of Patino. I think they beat Duke.
John, I'm with you on that. And I'll say this. Look, Louisville Louisville had to get rid of him. He just, I mean, he just had to go. I think, given some of what's happened since he's left, some people will say, yeah, well, we'd love to have him back. Um, I think you're in good hands with Pat Kelsey. That's what I would tell him. But none of us thought that Rick Pitino was done, and none of what Rick Pitino is doing now is surprising. He's a good coach. Yes, he came with a whole lot of baggage, but if he doesn't bring the baggage, John, he is one heck of a coach. And he's shown it with what, his sixth team in the, I guess going to the Sweet 16. And I want to, and I might be conservative on that one. Yeah, sorry about the shake there, but um, you know, Patino, people could say whatever about Patino and his baggage, but at the end of the day, he coaches those guys up and they win games. Name one superstar on this St. John's roster. I defy you to find one. You're gonna have to Google it, but he gets these guys ready. And let's see, what is
Zuby Ekakor.
thank you. I'm John, I'm gonna take your word for it because
and
I
and
have
and
tried.
and, and Mr. Rhodes,
Yeah.
and I say that in jest. I get what you're saying, Gary.
Yeah, it's the most
Um,
intriguing matchup of the
yeah,
of the Sweet 16, and John, I agree with you because Patino is just, I mean, he's just doing another bang up coaching job, and nobody should be surprised.
their defense is really great. Their offense is a struggle. They had
Hmm.
Kansas the other night. It was 66-52, and it just went completely dead on offense. They shot a lot of threes against Kansas, didn't hit a lot of them. I their defense, I think a lot of the times is created. I'm sorry, their offense a lot of times is created from their defense.
Yeah.
Strong defensive team. They play a tough one. I think them and Duke, they're going to play each other very hard. I think the difference will be Duke is better offensively, but I think St. John's is a touch better defensively. And I think this game is going to be won on 50-50 balls and who controls the boards. And that's coach speak. Everybody says, well, that's what's happening anytime. Anyway, John, that's what games are based on. But I think Cameron Boozer is, one of the candidates for player of the year. But with
Hmm.
this kid, Ejigor, Zugi, number 24, I think he's going to present a challenge to Boozer that he hasn't seen this year. Their guard play, Caden Boozer, the twin, he has really been the one pick the guard play up. I think one thing that'll help Duke, I think Injaba is back, the big aircraft carrier. He played last game, but he's just getting himself back to where he needs to be. So, that'll be interesting how that goes. Isaiah Evans is going to play a key role. He's the one that loosens defenses up with his shooting. He's going to have to play very well, but I think St. John's is going to extend their defense out and make things very difficult for Duke. They're going to have to rely on putting the ball on the floor and not get open jumpers. I don't think that either team's going to see a lot of open shots. I don't see this game honestly going above 65 points. I think it's going to be a hard defensive battle. I could be wrong, but I won't be wrong about this. It'll be a close battle, whichever way it goes. And I think St. John's pulls it out. That's my thought.
Yeah. John, again, I agree with you. I think well, here's the thing that I noticed about St. John's the first two rounds, and this isn't surprising. Like you said, they're predicated on their defense creating offense, and it's just like what they had here at Louisville. Of course, at Louisville, he had offense. He doesn't have the same kind of firepower there, and I think against Duke, they're going to have to press. Um, they're going to have to press and trap a lot to try to create opportunities on the other end to counter Duke's offense. That's the main thing. Um, I think because Duke plays defense so well, just as well, and that leads to offense. I think going in they have an advantage, but I do think that the way St. John's will press you, man. Sometimes when they get into a zone, they will harass you out on the perimeter as well. But again, a lot of it is predicated on creating those turnovers, leading to points at the other end. And I think it will be something for Duke to really have to have the manpower, the depth, if you will, to keep up with them. Because as much as I like the fact that Caden Boozer has really stepped up his play, and he needed to for Duke because of the injuries. We didn't give them that much faith going in because of the injuries, to several players. But he's had to look down his bench. John Shars had to look down his bench and find some more contributions. And for the guys that were part of the rotation, he's had to expect more. And Caden Boozer at times I think has taken some of the spotlight away from his bigger brother, who again will probably be the number one pick or the number two pick in the NBA draft. And that's one thing I do like about Duke is that they're starting to get the contributions that they need for balance. But I still think at the end of the day, it's probably going to be St. John's just because this this team, this St. John's team, I don't think we've seen the best out of them yet. As good as they've been, I think they're really finding themselves, and I think their best games are ahead of them. And that might sound cliche-ish, but I do think that's the case.
Gary, I'm gonna tell you, another region. All four of these regions have great games, but a couple of them stick out more to me than others. The South region, Iowa and Nebraska sticks out to me because that's a rivalry from the Big Ten. They're going to play each other,
Mhm.
and then Illinois and Houston. That's going to be interesting to me as well. I think Houston will beat Illinois. I like the kid that plays the guard for him, Fleming. I like Cenac, another aircraft carrier down low. What's that kid's name? He's always blocking shots, running the floor, getting rebounds. Turley, is that his name?
I think,
Turley,
yeah, I
Joseph
think,
Turley.
yep, I think you're right, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna look that name up just to make sure I'm right.
yeah, and then Isaiah Sharp, he's been there with Kelvin Sampson for 4 years, I think, and he's the leader as a senior of this team. I think they're going to be a little bit too much for Illinois. Illinois is this team with Coach Underwood. They like to get
Hmm.
out. They got a great player, and what's the kid's name? Keaton Wagner.
Yeah,
Unbelievable player. Unbelievable player. But I think
hmm,
this Houston team is going to slow them down. We're not talking about a
yeah.
slow pace, but I mean slow them down from scoring. And they are rough on defense, Gary. I've said it,
Oh yeah,
and I
we've talked about their defense before.
yeah, and I should not compare them to this team. It's not fair, and I apologize for it, and I can end up being wrong. But doggone if they don't remind me of Georgetown back in the 80s with Pat Ewing and Reggie Williams and Ralph Dalton and Freddie Brown, David Wingate. That's what they remind me of, man. And I tell you, watch those Houston kids. rebounding. They put both hands on the ball. You can't knock the ball out the hands on defense. They're cutting that baseline off. They're turning the dribbler to the middle for help defense. And somebody said something very interesting. We always talk about how people are selfish as offensive players. You never talk about selfish defensive players. They are very unselfish, Houston is. As I
Yeah.
said, they're cutting off that baseline. They're turning the ball back into the middle. There's always help defense, always a good rotation, calling the picks out, sliding through a pick, going over a pick. They're strong. The thing that concerns me, their defense will always be there, but you got to make sure the offense is there. That kid Fleming, Keyshawn Fleming,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, he's unbelievable, man. I love watching that kid. I hear rumors that he may leave after this year. I hope they're just rumors. I hope he stays around for another year, selfishly. I know these kids don't stay around a long time, but I like Houston there. And on the other side there, I'm going to say I like well, shoot, I'm looking at the key. Let me see well, I can say who I want because everybody I picked on my bracket is out of there, Gary. So I'm going with,
Yeah.
I'm going with Nebraska there, man. I'm saying Nebraska and Houston final to be in the South final, the Elite Eight to see who's going to the Final Four. Hey, man, go ahead.
Yeah.
What you think, Gary? I'm
Well,
running
I
my
agree.
mouth off, Gary, because I'm excited.
Yeah, well, again, as much as we talk about offense in this tournament, what wins championships, John? Defense. It's cliche-ish again, but especially in the college game right now, the ones that can make that are making the teams that are making the stops: Houston, St. John's, Duke, Arizona, which is playing pretty good defense. Michigan. Those are the teams. There's a reason why they're number one seeds. Well, I mean, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan are still number one seeds, still alive because they have the offense, but everything is predicated on their defense and creating those opportunities. I saw a stat, I think, where Michigan in the first two rounds was creating something like 15 more chances per game than their opponents, thanks to their defense. Not just rebounding, but steals, uh, deflections, things like that. Deflections where teams just they might get the ball back, but then they end up becoming empty possessions. And I just thought, wow, that's you're talking about 15 extra possessions a game, 15 extra chances a game. If you make all of them, that's 30 points right there at least, and that's very very significant. For any team, let alone Michigan, which is why I like them. We've lavished praise on Dusty May for the job he's done there, and losing in the Big Ten championship is not really a big deal. In that because it didn't hurt their seeding, and as you like to say, sometimes it's good to get a loss there and understand things, do a reset, and I think you're seeing what that reset is doing for them in the tournament. But having mentioned the the Big Ten, Purdue is another one of those teams, John, that just really, I'm like, you got to keep an eye on them. We talk about St. John's, but Matt Painter, I just think he's doing another wonderful, wonderful job with a team that I think, as opposed to some other teams where they were looked at as the favorites, they're nobody knows really what to expect of them. And I think with that pressure off, they're playing looser and they're playing a lot more aggressive on both ends. The way they go to the hole is kind of scary with their bigs.
Purdue is good. I like their point guard, Braden Smith. He
Hmm.
definitely runs the show. They're good. I think they'll beat Texas. Texas, Rick Barnes, wherever Rick Barnes is, his team's
Oh,
always
Tennessee. Well,
competitive.
Rick Barnes is Tennessee.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He's not Texas anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is Sean Miller now at
Sean
Texas.
Miller.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Look, at first I
And
thought you were going to pull out Shaka Smart's name, but
no, but Sean Miller's doing a very good job there. I just don't think they're going to have enough to beat Purdue. The other game in that West bracket that's exciting to me: Arkansas, Arizona. Arkansas has a kid, that kid Acuff. You know, matter of fact, today just announced Reebok signed him to a tennis shoe deal. Congratulations to Acuff. I think that's good for him. That's beautiful. But man, he's a tremendous player. They got Brazil playing down low. He controls it down in
Yeah.
that paint. They are very good. They got DJ Wagner coming off the bench.
Yeah.
They are a tough team. I'm
Healthy,
saying this
healthy, and
now.
coming off the bench, and understanding his role, and really doing well with it. He could very well be a starter. He could have been a starter at Kentucky. Well, he was a starter at Kentucky when Calipari was here, but injuries kind of slowed his development. And again, the discussion here this week has been about Patino and Calipari, two former Kentucky coaches, two former coaches from Kentucky that are thriving in their new schools, left under whatever, didn't necessarily leave on their terms, but they go to new schools, and here they are with Calipari, Sweet 16 for another year, and they look even better than last year. I mean, Acuff has really made a difference for them. And just as you mentioned about Wagner, about their bench, their inside game, and really their poise in tight moments. The thing about like his freshman laden teams here is that they had enough talent to take leads on games, but they didn't quite have the experience to handle tight moments. And you saw that with Calipari's last Kentucky team that got knocked out by Oakland in the first round, hence his departure. But he has learned the game, especially the recruiting game and the NIL game. We'll get into that in a little bit, but in terms of his style, I think Calipari is doing probably his best coaching jobs these past two seasons because he had to change some things, and he's done well with it. So anybody that was saying all these years at Kentucky, all he was a good recruiter, look at what he's doing with Arkansas and be quiet. Just shh. Don't want to hear it.
You know, that's another guy that wears $400 shoes and $5,000 suits. I love watching him coach. I love
Hmm.
Calipari. I think he's doing a great job there. I'm going to tell you a player to watch for Arkansas. I mentioned Brazil. I mentioned DJ Wagner. I mentioned A Cup. I'm going to tell you a player to watch. The aircraft carrier, Ewan.
Hmm.
You watch
Yeah,
Ewan
yeah,
down low. He's going to look in your mind, if you're looking at him, you're going to think he's doing nothing. He's contributing nothing. He makes key rebounds. He calls key defenses out, makes key shots down in that paint.
yeah.
You watch him. He's going to be a key to this game against Arizona because Arizona is very big and very tough. But I think Arkansas beats them. Arkansas goes from the Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight to the Final Four, Gary Graves. Now that leaves us with
Hmm.
one last bracket, Midwest. Now I mentioned Rick Barnes too soon. He's over there at Tennessee doing a great job. I think Iowa State beats Tennessee. Iowa State has some lethal shooters. Really tough. Now they did lose the kid Jefferson for the rest of the season. That was their point forward. That's going to hurt. But I think they got enough to get by Tennessee. But the game is going to be Michigan and Alabama. That's going to be one up and down contest. They just going to go back and forth. It's going to be up in the nine. First, I say the first team to 90 wins, Gary. First team to 90 wins, Michigan and Alabama. And
Yeah.
I say Michigan moves out of the Sweet 16, gets out of the Elite Eight, and move on to the Final Four. So I'm looking at St. John's, Houston, Arkansas, Michigan.
John, I'm not going to argue. That would at this point now that Florida's out, that's the way I kind of see it going to because I look at teams that have adjusted since their conference tournament, and Arkansas is one, St. John's is another one. Um, let's see, yeah, and Houston is another one. I think these games Thursday and Friday are going to be probably going to be probably the best games of the weekend in terms of really settling what this Final Four will look like. We'll see the favorites come out of these games.
Well, I'm looking forward to some more exciting basketball. I was up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday till midnight each night. So I'm looking forward to some more. And I can't wait till Thursday. We're going to move on to the women. I'll just say this real quick. Gary, think of the kind of life I'm living. Orioles open on Thursday. I watched that, and then I watched two basketball games that night. Tell me, am I not living
Hmm.
a good life?
Oh
Tell
yeah,
me.
you are, John. We will be living a good life. I mean, yeah, look, there's no better week, man, when you have basketball and the start of baseball season. And as strange as it is for baseball season to be starting like what the final week of March as opposed to the first week of April, I'll take it. I'll take it. And
Hey, man.
and the women's side, now you talk about staying up till midnight. I stayed up to watch TCU women and Washington Sunday
Hmm.
night. And John, that was it was really probably one of the gutsiest games I think I've ever seen a team play with TCU. They've got this. I forgot how many games they've consecutive home games they've won, but they had to play from behind almost. I'd say for the first 35 minutes, and they just
Hmm.
couldn't seem to get that shot to get them either tied or get them over the hump. And two stops really made the difference. Once they finally got a lead, they didn't relinquish it. They had a chance to win it at the end of regulation. Olivia Miles did not get the shot that she wanted, but in overtime, they got to the line. It was like, okay, if we can't get baskets, we're going to get to the line. She facilitated a lot of that. Knocked down. I think she knocked down a shot herself. uh, TCU, I think, is very poised to advance. I guess what last year they went to the regional final with Haley Van Lith. I think
Hmm.
I think they can get back there again with Olivia Miles at the point. I do think she needs to shoot a little bit more. I know it's nice to get everybody involved, but all eyes are going to be on her. She has shown she can be a shooter. She can do it at both ends, defense. As on defense, as a floor general, and as a shooter. And I think that's what you're going to need in this next round.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting round. You got South Carolina playing Oklahoma in this Sacramento bracket. TCU is going to play Virginia. Virginia has had two upset
Woo.
wins.
Yeah,
Virginia
never. What
upset
a
Georgia, then they beat
yeah.
Iowa on Iowa's court in double overtime. But I think Virginia's glass slipper does not fit anymore. I think TCU beats them. I think South Carolina will bounce back from the loss they took to Oklahoma early in the year in overtime. I think you're going to have South Carolina and TCU in that regional final. Tough fight. Tough fight. South Carolina pulls it out.
Yeah. Um, what do you think about UConn at this point? It's always easy to pick them, but what do you like or don't like about UConn women at this point?
I think they are very good. AZ Fudd is leading them this year. I had the privilege, the honor to see her play in high school. She's a tremendous player, and just watching her I won't say seems, is a tremendous person. I watched her with her teammates both at when she was at St. John's and watching her on TV here at UConn. I think UConn's a very good team. I think the one thing that could hurt them, it could be a size issue, but I don't think the size issue will come up until if both teams get that far into the championship. If both teams make it, they could face UCLA. That big aircraft carrier UCLA has is giving people problems all year. I think if UConn plays South Carolina again, South Carolina has bigger players, but I'm still not sure South Carolina has the formula to beat this version of UConn. Like last year, they lost to them twice. South Carolina in previous years has been able to beat UConn, but this version of UConn is very adept at shooting, very adept at the dribble pass and kick back out. They're just do I have to say they're well coached? You already know Gino Auriemma does a wonderful job with his teams. I think if UConn plays South Carolina again, I think it'll be close. It will not be like last year. Last year, UConn beat them pretty good both times. I don't think that happens this time. I think it'll be closer, but I'm still not sure if South Carolina has enough. Their bigs are young. They're going to be tough in a couple of years. I think one kid's name is Agat, and I forget the other young lady's name. They're very good. The other one is very adept at shooting outside. I think that's helped spread the court if you're able to meet UConn. But it'll be an interesting game, Gary. And to answer your question, I think you can't make UConn play fast. You can't make them play slow. They're a very disciplined team. They do what they want to do when they want to do it. I think the only thing that I really see as a concern is size if they meet the wrong team.
I think two intriguing matchups. Let's see. I'm trying to think of which. I'll just go to Duke and LSU. Duke's a 3 seed. LSU's a 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Duke is the ACC champion. LSU is not. Um, and But LSU has played well in its first 2 games. Duke just keeps humming along, and there's a part of me, granted, it probably wouldn't make much of a difference, but when you've got, I think the seeding between these twos, you could easily flip them. But I think momentum really rides with Duke because they are fast. I think that um, Kara Lawson has the kind of team that can run with LSU. They have a and they also have length. That was other. It's like it's not just they're tall, but John, they can really spread it out. They deflect a lot of passes. They block a lot of shots, and of course they can rebound. That's going to be a challenge for LSU. At the same time, there's so much that LSU has going on. I don't think Duke has seen a team that is probably as balanced as LSU. Even like I said, with the teams that they face in the ACC, such as North Carolina, Louisville, and of course, we talked about Virginia as the Cinderella. What's not being said about Virginia, by the way, is the fact they have incredible length and they block a hell of a lot of shots. Not a heck of a lot of shots. I mean, a hell of a lot of shots. I want to say they had one player that was averaging something like seven blocks a game, but they're one of the nation's leaders in block shots, and that's something that I think has carried them in this postseason. But like you said, if you come out of the first four, yeah, it's a good story. Yeah, they've made it to the Sweet 16, but I do think the clock strikes midnight for them, and the glass slipper is going to turn into a loafer or something at some point. But back to Duke and LSU, that might be the most interesting matchup because they're so even. And we've talked a lot about Malaysia Full Wiley rather with LSU and her adjustment after transferring from South Carolina. I dare say, John, that she, I think, has found not so much her game, but maybe her identity. with LSU now. I think she's starting to get it, and what or get what Kim Mulkey needs from her. And hey, better late than never. That's what makes them dangerous. Like you know about you know about the starters, but I think it's their bench that you really have to really contend with because they're physical, they play defense, and they can put points on the board too. The other game, this one isn't as sexy, I would say, as some of the other games, and I really hate using that word, but I'm gonna say attractive game. Notre Dame and Vanderbilt. I know how you feel about Notre Dame. And that's another team that I think is kind of found out, what like the tournament has just been kind of a reset for them, and they've played well. Vanderbilt is a team I've seen them once. I don't know if anybody knows how good they are. They can score points, they can defend, but they're a deceptively quick team. They look like they're going to try to walk the ball up the court, and all of a sudden they just kind of kick it into a gear and turn it into a fast-paced game, especially when they get it past half court. And I think that's what has caught some teams off guard in this postseason because again, they look like they're walking it up, and then all of a sudden, they'll get to like that three-quarter line and then just start moving the ball around, and everybody, it's a very busy, motion like offense, and it has caught their opponents off guard. And again, I don't think they've necessarily played their best game yet. But against Notre Dame and Hannah Hidalgo and all the things that she can do on both ends, that's something that they have to keep in mind. I think with Hidalgo, as as valuable as she is, John, there's also the temptation to do too much, or the concern that she might try to do too much. And I think when you get to this level, when you get to this point in the season, she's got to understand how to keep things under control, make sure that she can get the ball inside, make sure she can get her shots, not try to force things.
Good points, Gary. Pleasantly surprised with Notre Dame beating Ohio State. I think they can beat Vanderbilt. Beating UConn's a whole nother story. We'll see how that goes. Back on that other side with Duke and LSU, I think Duke's a very gritty team. Their defense is tough. They hit the offensive boards harder than any team I've seen. Um, I honestly believe if LSU cannot get to 70, they will lose. And I think I hear what you're saying. They both like to get up and down, but Kara Lawson has a more controlled up and down than
Yeah.
coach. What's the coach at LSU? I forgot her
Oh,
name
go Kim
already.
Kim Mulkey.
Kim Mulkey got a
Yeah.
more controlled thing. So I also think UCLA takes out Minnesota. So out of that bracket, I think I see either Duke or UCLA coming out of it. So we'll see what happens. On that last bracket, the Fort Worth bracket, Louisville and Michigan. Going to be very interesting. You got some interesting things there. Texas, Kentucky, Louisville, Michigan. Michigan should win, but I'm rooting for Louisville. Coach of Louisville was a former coach at University of Maryland. Does a really great job there, and that was a great game. Louisville won against Alabama. Had to
That
fight and
and that
claw
was
their way.
that was a slobber knocker, John,
Yeah, they
in
had
a
to
lot
fight
of
and claw their
ways.
way to get a win there. Um, the kid, I'm not even. I'll just tear her name up. It's the
Oh,
Falucci.
oh, oh, East Istanbululu.
Yeah, magnificent player. I
Yeah.
remember watching Alabama play. If it wasn't last year's year before, they played against Maryland. They shot a lot of threes. I see they put up 26 threes yesterday. So, but only hit seven of them. But my
They
hats off to my hats
well,
off
well,
to
no, they hit 12 of 26, and that's what made them
12. Okay.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Louisville was 7 of 26.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing that made Alabama so dangerous is that yeah, I think they only took 10 threes in their first game,
Hmm.
um, and yet they had I think they had 12 by the first 2 minutes of the second quarter. and it was hard for Louisville. Just kept working the ball in. They would build like maybe a 2, 4, 7 point lead. That's the thing. This game had something like 18 lead changes, and the biggest lead was 7 points twice by Louisville. That's how tough it was because they could answer with the threes. That's what
Mhm.
Louisville is going to need to do against Michigan. They're going to have to find a 3 point shooter, or they're going to have to really find a way to um, keep the ball in Istanbululu's hands, or Laura Ziegler, who I think really does need to shoot more. But one player, again, I can talk chapter and verse about Louisville having seen him. Um, Zach Randolph's daughter, Michaela, I think that Michaela Randolph is much is so much like her father. It's just kind of creepy, it's like she does all. I'm sorry, I said Michaela. I meant to say Mackenzie. Um,
Mhm.
Mackenzie Randolph. John, you talk about a workmanlike utility player who gets the rebounds, can knock down a three when needed, gets the offensive rebound, can block shots. Um, this is a team that I think, as opposed to say having one star like they've had in recent years, it's a team by committee. And Jeff Walls, I think, has always kind of known that's how it's going to be, where you have like 4 or 5 players averaging between 8 and 12 points a game, and that's what they're going to need, that kind of balance. But at some point, you're going to have somebody step up and score more points, because Michigan is a very it's a powerful squad. There's a very good chance they could have both teams in the Final Four, and they're looking stronger with each game. In that bracket too, with Kentucky, I don't think Kentucky can advance that far because they've been way too inconsistent. I'm glad that they've made it to the Sweet 16, but they're going to need something more. Sarah Strack has been their go-to player, but they're really going to need a lot more to get to that next round, and hopefully set up maybe an all Kentucky regional final. But I don't really see that happening because Michigan is still so strong.
Well, Gary, this is what I'll say as we head towards wrapping it up. My final four is going to be South Carolina, UConn. Now, let me also preface saying I hope I'm wrong and it's Notre Dame, but I think it'd be UConn, Duke, and Texas. That's my final four.
Yeah, we really didn't even go into detail about Texas and how strong Vic Schaefer's squad is,
I
and
just have to say one. I only have to say one thing about Texas.
Madison Booker.
Yep,
Okay,
and we just covered everything.
that's it. Yeah, I mean, what do you say? What else can you say after a 40 point game in the tournament?
Uh,
In the tournament, best time of year. And again, that's one thing about the women's side that I think is underplayed, is that they're as good as UConn is, as much as they're on top of that mountain. There's some others that are climbing up that can knock them off the top of that mountain, and I think Texas might be that squad.
well, we're gonna find out, Gary. Exciting times. Go ahead and take us home, Gary.
All right. What more can we say about the start of baseball season, opening day? Hopefully, the weather will be nice wherever you watch a game in person. I'm not sure if I'm going to go see the Reds this weekend. They play the Red Sox. A lot of it just depends on, well, one, tickets available, because that's a premium series, of course, and the Red Sox, I think, have a chance to make some noise in the East. But hey, you got choices, and oh yeah, John, we have the UFL starting off. With the defending
Saturday.
champion DC Defenders. There's a new team in Louisville, the Louisville Kings, that come in this year. Um, so you've got spring football, I think, that people actually want to watch as opposed to college, unless like you're in that Power Four group. But John, the NCAA tournament, regional finals, I mean, Sweet 16, Elite Eight. It doesn't get much better than that. So you've got something to watch and you got something to come back and hear us talk about the following week. So look, do your job, watch some sports, forget about all the other stuff going on in the world, find your escape with that. Come on back and see us.
Hey, thanks a lot. And thanks for everybody watching us again. As Gary said, man, watch some basketball. Watch the women's tournament. Watch the men's tournament. Watch some NHL hockey. Watch the UFL start off this weekend. Watch some Major League Baseball and cheer for the Orioles with me. Watch the NBA as well. But above all else, just watch some sports. Come back and see us. Take care.